Economy is John Wraith. He's fixed income strategist at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. Thanks so much for joining us, John. So this is an unprecedented thing, a debate of chancellors on television, kind of a U.S.-style debate. But I guess the big question is this going to help shed some light on the different policies here?
Well, maybe to a degree, and that's clearly the hope, that the individuals are drawn out on some of their policies and give a little bit more detail, because certainly from the point of view of the markets, that's something we're lacking at the moment. We're hearing a lot of intention and a lot of understanding that the deficit needs to come down as soon as it appropriately can, but really a bit thin on detail from all the parties.
So thin on detail, and that was another thing. I mean, the budget was pretty thin on detail as well. That didn't help us too much. Yeah,
and for political reasons, that was inevitable. The fact of the matter is that we need some very severe fiscal tightening that goes well beyond anything that we've heard in detail from any of the major parties.
Well, on that front, who do you have more confidence in, Labour or the Conservatives, in terms of who is going to do a better job of cracking down on the deficit and also ensuring the recovery?
Well, I really do think it's hard to be certain at this point. We know, of course, Labour has a track record, and the markets will make up their own mind should Labour get re-elected as to whether that track record is going to continue in that way, and whether Labour are going to continue to be somewhat profligate, which is certainly their track record, whereas the Conservatives, they haven't been in power for a long time, and at the moment, because they too are understandably being a little bit thin on detail, it's not really possible for the markets yet to make up their mind.
What details do we have so far? I mean, we've heard from the Conservatives that they will perhaps cut the deficit at a faster pace.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly where the dividing line seems to lie. I think the reality is, the gap between spending and receipts needs to fall by something of the order of £100 billion. Probably within the next 5 years or so, and I think there's a general realisation that's the case. So far it just comes down to semantics about where some of the more marginal savings are going to be made, but if you think about that scale of improvement that's needed in the public finances to keep the markets on side, as I say, there's going to be a lot more detail coming after the election, I think.
I spotted the front page of the FT today. Cameron's talking about putting tax cuts here at the centre of the campaign, which I thought was interesting, pledging to reverse a rise in national insurance that was due to take place in 2011. That's kind of a risky tactic, isn't it? Well,
to a degree, but when you think about the saving or that will need to be made to offset that, it is fairly marginal in the grand scheme of things. I think all the parties are fencing around looking for eye-catching policies without committing too much in either direction. They certainly can't afford to be seen as being overly generous at this point, but nor, of course, do they want to be seen as being dramatically tightening, although that is something that we think is necessary. So at the moment it's about winning votes, and once we get beyond the election, whoever has won the most votes is going to have to take some tougher decisions. Are you predicting market mayhem? Should we get a hung parliament? I don't know. I think there is an argument to say that a hung parliament, as long as it meets with a sort of collegiate response from those who form the next government, could in the longer run not be such a bad thing. I think perhaps from the market's point of view, bearing in mind uncertainty and the risk that they won't be able to enact the fiscal tightening that's needed, I think a wafer-thin majority for either of the main parties could be more damaging in the longer term, although, yes, a hung parliament will obviously cause some nerves in the near term.
What are you expecting to happen?
It's hard to say. A lot does depend on these debates, I think. It's clear that, the parties share a lot of common ground at the end of the day. They are fighting for the marginal votes more than anything else, and I think both this debate and the leaders' debates coming up will start to crystallise some people's minds. So it is very important, but as I said earlier, I wouldn't expect to hear too much detail. OK, we've just got a few weeks to go. Tell us what the outlook is for the gilts market. Well, we think short-term that gilts can continue to do a little better as they have been over the last week or two. There's a big lull in supply at the moment for another 10 days or so, and in that environment we could see them do a little better. We still have a lot of concerns longer term, partly because of this conversation we're having. We're not sure about what the fiscal outlook will be, and we're not even sure whoever gets in that they will be able to enact enough fiscal tightening in a very weak economy to sort the problem out in a time frame that gives them credibility in the market. So we think longer-term yields go a fair bit higher and gilts underperform. Testing times then for Britain's politicians. Thanks very much. John Wraith, fixed income strategist at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Thanks so much for joining us.